The following program was provided by an independent producer solely responsible for its content. The opinions expressed do not necessarily represent the views of this station, its staff, board of directors, or underwriters.
Hi, welcome to The Ring and All Other Sports. My name is Leo Connors, and I'm your host. And today I got a very special guest, Justin McIsaac. Justin, thanks for coming on the show.
Hey, Leo. Great to be here. Thanks for having me.
No problem. I was telling the producers a minute ago how I used to love to watch you wrestle. You were so funny. You did a lot of comedy in your matches, and I thought it was great.
Well, I didn't have a lot of physical skills, so I had to make up for it with something, right?
Right, there you go. There you go. And there's a place for comedy in wrestling. I love like how you go. A perfect show for me is where you go and you get a little bit of everything. You know?
Yep, sure. Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Well, I got a lot of stuff I want to ask you and all that. So let's just get right into it. Justin, where did you grow up?
I grew up in Rochester, New Hampshire. That's where I live right now.
Okay.
I went to Spalding High along with Brian Fury, who's been on your show a couple times.
Yep.
And born and raised here in Rochester.
Nice. Okay. When did you first see wrestling? Did you get that one?
Oh man, the first big show I remember watching, start to finish, the first big show, Mania 4. But I remember watching like Saturday Night's Main Event on TV. When it was on, I'd stay up late to watch that. We didn't have WCW in this part of New Hampshire. We didn't get like Turner or anything, so it was all WWF stuff.
Nice. That's what I'm a lot older than you. I grew up when it was before cable, and all there was WWF stuff. All right. Who were some of your favorites when you first started watching?
Well, everybody loved Hulk, so Hulk Hogan naturally first growing up. But I was like the guys that were involved in the program for the Intercontinental title, like the Macho Man. I was a big Honky Tonk Man guy too for some reason. I tended to like the heels a lot. See Mr. Perfect, the guys like that. Right,
nice. I'm a big Honky Tonk Man myself. All right, so when did you know you wanted to be a professional wrestler?
Well, so we used to do, when I was in high school, we would do backyard wrestling, a whole group of us. Brian Fury was among them. This guy that used to wrestle as Super Rhino, Alan Starr, his name's Al Spader. He was part of that group. There was probably like 14, 15 of us that would do it for fun. Yeah, it was wild. We'd all, like, each guy would have different personas and like different outfits to go with the personas and stuff like that. So I think it was around that time I started to wonder, how do you do this? Like, how do you do this? Not for a living, but how do you get to be a pro wrestler? And it wasn't until I was it 19 or 20 or so that there was a big article about Jeff Costa and his school in his backyard in the Boston Globe. And back then, if you wanted to get a hold of somebody, there wasn't really an internet. You had to call information. So I called information and I asked for Jeff Costa in Nashua, and I got his number, and then I just cold called him. And he said, we're doing tryouts after this show in Hudson. Come on now. So that's kind of how it got going.
Right. Oh, that's funny. Sonny does a good Jeff Costa impersonation too. Now I know I forgot to ask this one question. I know Brian obviously was anyone in your family into wrestling?
Apparently I had a great uncle who was a pro wrestler like in the 50s.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So my grandfather's brother, Dave Levitt, he was a big BSer, so who knows how much that's true, but he claimed he knew like the original Dropkick Murphy that opened the bar in Boston and wrestled with him, and said he did some wrestling in Mexico. So I don't know what his ring name was or his work name or anything like that, but that was the story I was told. Who knows if it's true?
Right. Well, seeing you brought up Mexico real quick, did you go to Mexico with those guys when they went? With Jeff?
I think that was right when like eventually in wrestling, usually weird feuds start with people. So I think I was on the outs with Jeff and those guys at that moment, but But no, Brian told me all about wrestling in a Mexican prison and all that. And
yeah,
that sounded pretty wild.
Crazy. Amato told me a bunch of stories too. And I mean, I guess Jeff and Rip were really good for Amato, though. They kept Jen real close when they got to the prison. Thank God.
Yeah,
Jeez.
right?
All right, so I know who trained you, but let's tell everybody else. Who trained you?
Sure. So it was Jeff Costa, Lobster Man. A lot of people know him as. And really, there was a big group of veteran guys there that helped out with the training too. I mean, it was kind of a who's who of the old graybeards of independent wrestling. If you used to watch it, like Sonny Goodspeed was one of them.
Right.
Rip Morrison, Maverick Wild had a big influence on me. He showed me a lot of the crazy bumps that I would do once. I'm like, oh, I don't need to do that again. A fabulous Johnny Vegas, but that whole crew was fantastic.
Right.
Johnny Royal, Gary Cadelis, I'm sure I'm leaving guys out, but just a great group of guys.
Nice. Yeah, they are a great group of guys. That's what, like I said, that's where I first saw you wrestle was for Jeff.
Yep.
Why don't you tell us about your first match?
So my first match was it was August of 1998. And it was at the Knights of Columbus Hall in Derry. I'll never forget it because it was you never forget your first match. I ended up working with Maverick Wild, and we were the opening match. And I remember I didn't have gear yet. All I had was boots that I bought secondhand from Johnny Royal. So Maverick lent me some of his gear. He lent me a singlet he had, and I was really nervous. I was 20 years old.
Right.
I was terrified. Cowboy Dave Walker, who broke it with Tarzan, they weren't the same tryout I was. I started training a little later than that, but Cowboy Dave Walker came over and he'd had a few matches at this point. He's like, well, at least you're not going on first. And then I'm like, no, we're jerking the curtain. We're going on first. He's like, oh, all right. So, but it went really well. At least I thought it did. I got way blown up in the middle of the match. Maverick took good care of me, and we got through it.
Nice. Yeah, like I said, I had Tarzan on Monday, and he was great. All right, so listen, before we get into your career, I got about 8 or 9 fan questions. We'll bang them out, and then we'll go through your career, and then we'll play the name game.
I don't think I had 8 or 9 fans, but okay, yeah, go ahead.
Well, I don't want to burst your bubble, but seven of them are from Mav.
That's fine, yeah.
All right, first question is from Chris Venom. He said, ask him about the New England Championship Wrestling show where we first met from Waltham, where you violated the town law and they made new law. No, I'm sorry, violated the town hall. Do you remember this? Oh, do you remember this?
I thought that was when I first met him. I do. I'm trying to think of a way I can tell the story and not jeopardize the TV station's license. Let's see. This is the show Sonny ran every year, and council chamber dressing room. So, because I'm a nutcase like most pro wrestlers, I said, well, where's everybody gonna sit? I'm gonna sit in the mayor's chair naturally, and I'm gonna sit there without any clothes on for a while, and I'm gonna pass laws as the mayor in a Mayor Quimby voice. The chair recognizes Mr. K.L. Murphy. Mr. Murphy, do you have a law to propose? And let's see, how do I say this? There was a certain part of the human anatomy I would use as the gavel, and that's I'm not going to say which one. I'll let you figure it out, but that's how we. So if anybody's watching from Waltham that was on the city council or mayor back then, my bad.
That is hilarious. I love it. All right, so Mav, we'll start with Mav's first question. He wants to know, ask him if he ever figured out how to get gum out of his trunks.
No, to this day.
Really?
I've never gotten the gum out of my trunks, and boy, how many poor independent pro wrestlers had to find out that I washed my gear and gum was stuck in my under trunks. Man, that was rough for a lot of guys.
Right. All right. So he also wants to know, let's see, did you ever pay Jeff back for the Conquistador suit that he bought? That somebody bought.
So the funny thing about those suits, so Brian Fury and I we worked twice for Jeff. We would work as ourselves. and then we would work as the conquistadors. Maverick found these suits on like a bondage site. And when you when you saw the suits, you could tell, like, oh yeah, those are bondage suits, huh? So when Jeff and I had a falling out, the feud forever was he said, you owe me $100 for that suit, kid, and I disagreed, and we eventually buried the hatchet. I'm gonna say I probably didn't end up paying it back, but I think all was forgiven.
Right, nice. Yeah, Jeff seems to have had a falling out with a lot of guys, but I know. Usually a lot of guys will say they made up with him and stuff. Yeah. So
he's a passionate guy. I love Jeff. He's fantastic.
Yeah, me too. Have you ever been back there since? I don't know if he means. I don't know if he means. What does he mean by that? Yeah,
I'll explain this. So we were doing a show in Vermont. I think it was Brattleboro, and Maverick. I forget something. Ticked Maverick off, which I know hard to believe, right? He's such a easygoing guy, and here's what it was. So we had some like little dressing room, kind of like bivouac. It was like a curtain that was just a dressing room, but the show was in a hotel, and people walking by could just kind of like poke their heads in if they wanted to. And some little kid like poked his head in while someone had like a full moon out. They were gearing down. You could see everything. And Maverick screams at this little kid. He's like, get the hell out of here. And added a few other things in there I can't say on TV. Right. But the kid was like a state trooper's son or something like that.
No.
Yeah. And then it was Wolfman that was booking the buildings, and we never went back to that building. So the running joke was, and we haven't been back since. That's
nice. That's funny. Seeing you brought him up. How about Wolfie? You get along good with Jason?
I haven't talked to Jason in a while, just because life drifts people apart. Right. Yeah, I always got along great with Wolfie. It was it was funny to tell people. Yeah, people would think you're making stuff up. Like, yeah, I'm a pro wrestler now, and I also know a guy that won the Powerball. They're like, okay, well, both those things are probably BS. At least one of them is. You know what I mean?
Right. That's funny. All right, so Matt wants to know. I like this question too. You'll like it. Describe wrestling Doug Williams.
Wow. So that was I wrestled Doug Williams one time in NECW, and Sheldon Goldberg would bring him in to do shots, and everybody else was tied up in a program the time he was coming in, and I kind of like lobbied Maverick. I forget who was doing the book for Sheldon at that point. It was either Maverick or Sonny or somebody that I was friendly with. And I lobbied Maverick. I'm like, I want to work with this guy. I want to see how if I'm any good. And Maverick was like, okay, yeah, you're going to work with him. So like, I was never a physical specimen. Obviously I went to the gym every day. I went to training 3 times a week, because I wasn't good at doing pro wrestling moves unless I worked at it. But I like really kind of trained my ass off to work with Doug Williams. And man, he's so strong and he's so fast, and
yeah,
he's just like a bull moose, but he's such a sweetheart too. But the way I was trained, like if somebody's working stiff with you, I didn't mind working stiff. Like you gave it right back, and Doug would, that's the kind of the British style. You stiff someone and they give it back, and it was so great working with him. Although when he did that finish, he does the roll up German suplex. I think there's brain cells still somewhere in Somerville that I haven't recovered because I saw my feet go over my head and I was like, wee. But when we got back in the locker room, talking over the match, he goes, "Oh, we had a bit of starch out there, didn't we?" Like, I was like, "Yeah," but it was fantastic. I mean, probably took 5 years off my life, but I loved it.
Right. I think we met Doug around the same time because he had came in for Ring of Honor when I was doing those catering jobs in the first couple of years in Massachusetts. And wow, what a great guy, though. Like you said, wicked nice guy.
Oh, yeah. He was a sweetheart. Yeah. He'd probably tear your arm off if he felt like it, but he was a sweetheart.
Right. Oh, yeah. Hey, what a great wrestler. All right. So Matt wants to know, do you feel you and Mav ever found the sound in the ring in Mass?
It was in Clinton, Massachusetts, and I forget what promotion we were working for, but the ring was I don't know if there was too much padding or what the problem was, but one of my favorite rings to watch on TV was it was the WCW ring, like in the 90s, because that ring just sounded like $1 million, right? And that,
Yeah.
it's not something you think about, but it could really add to like a match. Like when you do a big move to somebody and the ring makes this awesome big sound and the crowd pops. This ring wouldn't make a sound. So Maverick and I were just killing each other with stuff off the top rope. Like he had me backdrop him off the top rope, and I body slam him like I was Gronk spiking a football. Just trying to find the sound in this ring, and we never found it.
Wow.
Ring wouldn't make a beat. Yeah.
That's awesome. All right, this is a good one too, because I'm a big Poison fan. The band Poison. He says, "Why is there nothing but a good time in Plymouth, Mass?"
It's Plymouth, New Hampshire.
Plymouth, New Hampshire. Yeah, no, you're right. Yeah, Plymouth, New Hampshire.
Oh man, that was talk about a road trip gone wrong. So we did some shot for Sheldon. I think it was in Vermont somewhere, and we were staying at Alan Shape. Super Rhino Al was going to college at Plymouth State at the time, so we were going to stay there because it was close by. And we went there like the wrong way on 91, and then like Brian Fury and this other guy Rich that was part of the Fat Squad when I was just in shape were in my car, and they shook my car to the point, just goof around where I blew out a tire. And then some Maverick had to help change the tire. It was like 9 different types of debacle. And we didn't get home till like 2 a.m. Maverick had to leave at like 5. So he got like an hour and a half of sleep. We just every time we said it, he'd get more and more mad. We're like, nothing but a good time, Maverick. Nothing but a good time in Plymouth. And he'd be like, I'm never going anywhere with you guys again. This is ridiculous. So,
that's hilarious. All right, he's got one more. Ask him about this. This is an interesting one because I know nothing about this story. Ask him about how the Prince Nana, and then it has a / Ring of Honor / Alex Arion incident played out over an after show diner at a diner and after the show at Good Times in Somerville. Do you understand that? Because I kind of got confused myself. Prince Nana.
Which one is he talking about?
Prince Nana. Know.
You know what? I'm drawing a blank on this story. Unless he's confusing his stories, because there was. I'll tell you this one. There was a different show in Vermont. A different show in Vermont where Brian Fury and I were working in a 3-way match with Johnny Curtis, Fandango. And at the end of the match, Johnny did a leg drop to me, and he just caught all of my head, just completely concussed me. It happens. So Alex Arion and I drove up that night, and it was a Steve Ricard show. No, I'm sorry, not a Steve Ricard show. It was a Gary Langevin show. Gary used to put the boys up at a hotel as part of coming all the way up north in Vermont. I think this was in Linden. So Alex and I rode up. We got a late start. We didn't eat lunch, and now I'm concussed. We're trying to find somewhere to go eat afterwards, and we couldn't find anywhere open. The only thing we found open was this bar where Alex and I mean, what's Leo? When you have a head injury, what's the smartest thing you could possibly do? Right? Shots. Right. You know what I mean? I mean, what else would you do?
Right.
So Alex Arion and I start doing shots, and Maverick is with us, and Sonny Goodspeed too. So we get drunk enough where we're like daring each other to do stupid things, and eventually Alex dares me to go dance with this girl on the dance floor, which I do. And then some guy comes over and like blindsides me. He's like, "That's my fiance." At which point, Alex Arion comes over and starts cutting a promo on him, which is the funniest thing I've ever seen. Like, "Let me tell you something, brother. We can do this right now. We don't even have to step outside, dude. We can go at it right here." And this guy's like ready to throw down, but then he looks over at Sonny. And then he looks over at Maverick, and this is like peak physical shape Maverick, and thinks better of it. And walks away, at which point Alex hits me on the shoulder and goes, "Let's go do another shot." So that's and then there's a whole other story afterwards getting to the hotel, which I don't think I'm allowed to tell to this day. So we'll have to save that one for another day.
All right. So listen, you have an interesting job, interesting to me. As a kid, I never wanted to be like on TV. I always wanted to be in radio. So how did you go? Like, obviously you went to college, correct?
I did not go to college. I went to the 2 colleges I went to were Lobster Man's Ringside Wrestling Academy and then the Connecticut School of Broadcasting.
Yeah. All right. Now where are you working now?
So at the moment I work for, so my day job is I work as the producer and assistant program director for Jack Heath's morning show, which is on, it's on like 6 stations. We're based out of Manchester, and I'm also the program. I do a couple other things other than that, and I also do a lot of freelance play-by-play for sports stuff.
Right. I was going to ask you that. Now I know you won a couple of awards. Am I correct?
Yes, I'm the 2-time defending New Hampshire Sportscaster of the Year, according to the NSMA. I think I've won as many Sportscaster of the Year awards as I won singles titles in wrestling at this point. So
nice. That's great. So how long you been in radio though? How long have you been doing it?
I got into radio. I went to broadcast school in 2007. And I got I just started like the bottom rungs of the ladder. Most people go to college, they do college radio, then they get like a part-time gig, and then they start working like when they're like 20. Because I always do things backwards, I started doing that when I was 30. So I started off just like babysitting the feet of like the Portland Sea Dogs and things like that, and eventually worked my way up the ladder. So from 2008 till now, it's been quite a journey.
Nice. That's awesome. All right, so let's go through your career a little bit. I mean, you were a mainstay in New England Championship Wrestling. You also wrestled for Yankee Pro, EWA, NWA, Shockwave you wrestled for. I did not know that when you were the internet champion in 2003. Yep. As you can tell, I'm reading. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
That was what it was called, cyberspace. It wasn't called NWA Shockwave then.
Okay, because that's
Cyberspace Wrestling Federation.
All right, now they ran in Jersey, correct? Down that way, right? Or they never ran in Mass, did they? Okay. Now, how did you get booked for Billy Firehawk?
So how did I end up getting booked? It was through Scott Dickinson, because he and I were buddies, and Billy Firehawk would bring in a bunch of names. Like Billy Firehawk lived in like Las Vegas, and he would do these shows in New Jersey. I could never figure out why, but he would bring in like Larry Zbyszko and like Mike Tenay, and those guys knew Dickinson because he ref for WCW. So they were looking for someone, and Dickinson had like a bunch of us went down for the first show. Like Amato and Brian. I think Bob Evans was supposed to go when he couldn't, so I took Bob Evans' place.
Okay. Nice. Now he must have. I've heard from people that went to the shows down there in Jersey. I got a good friend of mine who's a referee, Sean Hansen. But did he lose did he have good crowds? Because I mean, I had heard that he was losing money almost every show for the people that he was bringing in.
He must have been, because he brought in all these like. Half the show was like all these guys that were working for TNA, like Ron Killings was on the show. Our Truth. CM Punk would just show up backstage. This is before he was like CM Punk. But he would fly in. Larry Zbyszko would fly in. Mike today. The belts he had were the greatest belts I've seen in independent wrestling. They're better than some major promotion, championships I've seen. So there was no way he was making money. It's not like he was drawing, 500 people. He's drawing, this is at a time too when New Jersey had like 17 promotions. Most of them were garbage. I mean, his shows were good, I thought, but there was no way he was making money.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. That's crazy though. Now I know Slick Wagner Brown in April used to go down there too. Now, did you have a disagreement with Slick in a match or something?
Yeah, so when Sonny was booking NECW, he put us into a program, and I thought it was a pretty fun program. At least I thought so my part of it was I was pretending April Hunter was calling me when in fact in kayfabe she was not, and I was I'd show up when they were having a tag match saying like stop calling me April or stuff like that, which eventually led to us having Maverick and I worked a tag match with Slick and Alex Arion, because they were the two big baby faces. And then the blow off was Slick and I were going to work a singles match, which I get, like Slick and I eventually patched things up. We don't really talk, I talk to like 4 people at this point because I'm a 41-year-old dad and I work 90 hours a week, but we don't really, we don't talk at this point, but we're cool, I think. But I think he thought it was like beneath him to do a program with me, because he was, he was what passed for a name on the independent scene back then. He worked a lot of places. Everybody knew who he was. And I was this I was this guy that, I was good at that point, but he kind of felt it was underneath his standing to work a match with you. So anyway, he goes out, and I'm the heel in the match, and he's the babyface. He goes out and cuts this big heel promo saying how like this isn't even worth his time. Basically a shoot, brother. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I went out there. So this kind of ticked me off. I tend to be a little petty to this day. So I went out and I did kind of some of the tricks Jeff Costa taught me when someone's messing with you. Like when you go to pin someone, you put your shoulder in their stomach, you blow all the air out of them. I no-sold some of his stuff. I hit him as hard as I could. After the finish, like April was supposed to bump me too after I put him over, and I just rolled out of the ring. I was like, nah, I'm not doing that. But
right.
Yeah. And it was some, it was at the end of the day, like having a disagreement over, something that's a work is silly, unless somebody's intentionally trying to hurt somebody, which wasn't the case there. It was just, clash of personalities and styles. And eventually, everything was cool. But yeah, there was a while where we weren't on each other's Christmas card list.
Right. I mean, I like Slick. I've known him a long time. He actually was my youngest daughter's favorite wrestler. But it's not the first time I heard that. I know we went down to Jersey All Pro. They wanted him to put over Kevin Matthews, who's a giant. Kevin's like 6'6", he's a huge guy, and he wouldn't do it. He left. I was like, when I heard that story, I was like, wow. Then Sonny started telling me some stuff. And again, I still love Slick. I always will, in case you watch it, Slick. I'm not trying to talk trash. Neither is Justin. It's just, conversation. But no,
I wish the guy well. From what I understand, he did a lot of maturing. Listen, wrestling's full of people that we're all weirdos in wrestling, right? Otherwise you wouldn't get dressed up in tights and pretend to fight somebody on the weekend. Exactly. So, there's different people mature and in different ways and at different times. It's, I wish the guy well. I hope. Well,
that's excellent out of but he just had a son like a year ago. He's a father now, so I'm sure he has probably calmed down in a lot of ways. Yeah. I think I want to say his son's about maybe 14, 15 months. Yeah, he posts a lot of pictures on Facebook. All right, so you also wrestle for Yankee Pro. Is that true?
Yeah, Yankee. Okay. So Yankee Pro. That's the Steve Ricard promotion, right?
Steve Ricard, Joe Junio. Yep. Yeah, Steve was probably booking, but I think Joe Junio might have owned it.
Yeah. Go down to New Bedford a bunch. In fact, Alex Arion and I one time drove down to a show that didn't exist. We were confused. We were like, oh, there's a show in New Bedford. We got to go down there. And we get to New Bedford or Fall River or wherever it was supposed to be, and there was nothing going on. So we drove all the way back to New Hampshire, and we worked for the Jägermeister bottle that night.
Unreal. How about I know when you wrestled for Mav at Front Row, you formed a pretty successful team with Wrong Way Johnny Royal.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. Yeah, and so I was doing at that point. I think I was doing Right Way Justin Shape, which was like a Rush Limbaugh ripoff gimmick, and he was doing Wrong Way Johnny Royal. So Maverick's like, "Oh, I'll put you two together, and he'll just make you mad." And I'm like, "Oh, okay, yeah." So that was a lot of fun because Johnny Royal is one of the guys he was already established with Rip at the Boston Bulldogs at that point, but one of the guys that was there when I first started, so that was pretty cool.
Nice. Now, did Jeff ever give you a silly gimmick? Like, were you ever a cowboy, or like Tarzan told me he was something Strongbow, Mark Strongbow? I forget what he told me, but were you ever anything else besides?
Yeah, his brother was Mark Strongbow. I actually Jeff, as you know, loves Lucha Libre, right? So there was a while where he wanted everybody to have a Lucha Libre gimmick, like Gary Canellis was doing Super Saiyan for a while.
Yep.
I think Johnny Royal was doing like Firecat, and so I actually like my first like gimmick was I did Starman, like from the old NES Pro Wrestling game.
Yeah.
I got like a mask in the suit and all that, and I would do like the Starman flying chop and all that. So that was that was my first real gimmick.
That's funny. The kid Joey Janela, who wrestles, I don't know if you watch AEW at all or anything, but he was doing a gimmick down at it was PWS, I think, Pro Wrestling Syndicate, which is no longer around anymore. But he was killing it. He was doing the walk and everything, man. It was hilarious.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's great.
All right. So now like you said, when you wrestled, when you went up to Vermont, that was for, like you said, Gary, right? That was Green Mountain Wrestling.
That's correct. Yes.
Were you on the show when he ran that one by the Oval in Nashua? Because that's the only Green Mountain show I ever went to. It was in like, it was around, it wasn't in the same building that that Jeff had his ring. I don't know if you're very familiar with Nashua, but there's a courthouse that's no longer open. It's around a rotary, an oval. And there's like all these brick buildings, and it was on like the 3rd floor or whatever. So you probably weren't on that show? Yeah. Okay.
No, not the show Gary did, but I know the building you're talking about. It was because we used to go over to 7 Star Pizza after we got done training because it was right near there. Yeah. Or some guys would go to Chicken and Chips, which is right around the corner.
Right. Yep. That was, I remember going to that show. And Scott Dickinson was the rep that night and everything. Well, I don't know if I think he was managing actually, not being a rep. Was Scott a manager at times?
Yeah, especially in NECW. He didn't ref down there. He just did the heel manager thing.
Okay. You brought up CM Punk earlier, and you just brought something made me think. I like all those shows I catered. He was probably the most miserable guy and the biggest jerk out of everybody else was really cool, but like he took one picture with us, and I think after that, whenever we asked him for a picture, he just would make the picture horrible. He'd look away, be looking mean and mad. What I want to know is, were you on the show that the charity show that Steve Carino ran, that Mab was on, and somebody was whistling, and Punk told him to stop, and Mab went over to the kid and said, "Whistle louder." I don't know if you were on that show.
I was not on that show, no, but now I wish I would have been. That sounds like classic Maverick. We
absolutely.
Jeez.
I got to ask you about this. One more about the, you also wrestled on the Headlock for Humanity. That was right after 9/11. That was in November 2001. How did you must have felt like proud and everything before you went out there, knowing that, you know what I mean? After what just happened to the country and you're trying to, show support for the country, but also go out there and entertain the fans and stuff. What was that feeling like, seriously, knowing that, what had just happened? And
yeah, it was, when I think Sheldon Goldberg asked me if I wanted to do the show and work with Maverick, which I said yes immediately because, it's for a good cause and I love working with Maverick. And it was kind of a weird show because we followed Balls Mahoney worked with somebody the match right before us. And it was like a trip, it was like a charity show for, right after 9/11, and Balls Mahoney went out and got all kinds of color. And I'm like,
oh yeah,
is that really what we're trying to do on a show to raise money for 9/11? So Maverick and I went out and we tore it up and I thought we had a really good match that night. We had a lot of fun. We had, this is going to drive me nuts. I can't remember the guy's name. His name was Sean something. He worked like in Florida for NWA years ago, but then he got hurt and became a referee. And I was like throwing in all these old school references, like just whispering to him during the match. Like I threw Maverick over the top rope and he's like, "Hey, you can't do that." I'm like, I'm not working for Jim Crockett. And he's like, "It would have been DQ'd in my day." I used to love that guy. He was great. That's going to drive me nuts what his name was. But the show was great. I mean, I thought our match was great. And it was for a great cause. I had a really good time doing that.
Now, it wouldn't be Sean Candido, would it?
No. Oh,
okay, all right.
I'm going to have to ask Mav afterwards.
I'll ask him. All right. Listen, let's jump into the name game, because this is like one of my favorite parts. You know the name game. Just if you had a funny story, if you don't like them, you can say something if you want, or you don't like whatever. All right. Let's start off with a crazy guy, Kevin Butcher Hughes.
Oh my God! Do you have another hour? Because it took me that long to tell my favorite Butcher Hughes stories. That's all. He's the best. He's the most fantastic guy. Just two quick things. Like I'm sure everybody's told this story, but one of the nights when I'm first training, I'm doing the music, right? Because you do all the little things before you get in the ring and actually work. And I'm like, hey Butcher, who's going over in the Battle Royal? I gotta have the music ready. He goes, well, you never know. That could be anybody. So that was one of them. And then Butcher used to get so into the matches, and he hated Johnny Vegas for some reason, or hated Johnny's character. Yeah. So Johnny's working with Gary Cadelas, and He wins with a screw job finish, and Butcher Hughes is the ring announcer. He goes, "The winner of the match is Johnny Vegas, a cheating bastard," and he runs after him with a hammer.
He literally, like, whenever you talk to him, when you walked away from him, you, like myself, I'd be like, what did he just say? Always saying something crazy.
Oh man, as Sonny's got a billion stories about him. Sonny could do 5 shows about Butcher Hughes. That guy's fantastic.
Yeah, he told one story where he was wrestling at the beach, and Sonny was wrestling Eric Watts, and Sonny quit like in the match. He's like swearing at everybody, and then when the match was over, Sonny left the ring. He was with Butcher Hughes, and they're walking, and he's like, "Want me to get my gun? I go get my gun, you know." Sonny's like, "No, you don't need your gun, Kevin." Oh, the guy's crazy, but nice guy, like you said, though, very nice guy. You know?
Oh yeah,
he treats the fans great. All right, how about your oldest friend in wrestling? Guy that's been on the show a couple times, guy I respect a lot. I think he's on my Mount Rushmore of New England wrestling because he not only was he a successful wrestler, but he gives back so much. Brian Fury.
Yeah, the one word that comes to mind is overrated. I mean, the guy couldn't work his way out of a wet paper bag. Taught him everything he knows, and he squandered it. I wouldn't spit on the guy if he was on fire. No, Brian. I met Brian when we were freshmen in high school, and there's a handful of people that you'd get hit by a truck for him. Brian's one of them. He's just and his work speaks for itself. The students he's produced, the matches he had. I can't say enough great things about Brian.
Yeah, and if I'm not mistaken, man, one of a very few that's been invited to the Performance Center 3 times. You know what I mean? So
yeah, he's definitely doing. I did one of the final podcasts with him and Crockett there, and before he was telling me about it. Sounds big things coming from my boy, I think.
Absolutely, and that was one of my favorite podcasts too. I was so bummed out when they decided to call it quits. I got to get Crockett on this show. He's awesome. All right, speaking of that, might as well. He's on the list. Mike Crockett, who's on an extended hiatus from the ring.
Mike Crockett is probably, of all the referees, Scott Dickinson obviously was a really good referee, but people kind of don't realize how much a referee brings to the table in a match. Like if you have a good referee, sometimes you won't notice him. If you have a good referee that has to do some complicated things, if you know the business, you notice him. If you have a bad referee, man, you can turn like if you have a bad referee, Shawn Michaels and Bret Hart might have a bad match with that. You know what I mean? Right. But Crockett was so smooth as a ref, like always there, always like right in your ear, telling you, like, hey, you're 10 minutes here. I had to do a couple things with him where he got bumped, and he's like, he took the best ref bump I've ever seen. Like Shane Sharp basically like speared him through the ropes, and they both went through. I was like, oh my God, I'm like on the ground selling. I'm like, that was a really good ref bump. Look at that. But he's always late. I don't understand why he's late for everything.
He's always late. I heard. But like back then, him and referee Rich Lannon. I don't know if you know Rich Lannon, the referee used to ref for Killer. He was trained by Killer Kowalski. It's actually an extended family member. Yeah, both those guys are phenomenal reps. And like right now, I don't know if you know Kevin Quinn, but Kevin Quinn's a great rep too.
Yeah.
And Rich Bass. There's some really good reps in New England right now. All right, how about why don't we talk about the couple of commentators and stuff and announcers? Rich Palladino.
I didn't really run into Rich a lot. I never worked for Chaotic. When I was in my heydays, Chaotic was kind of like hard to get into, and like they were signing guys to contracts. So I didn't work with Rich. I knew of Rich. He had a good reputation, and I met Rich a few times at Brian's school afterwards, but Rich and I never really crossed paths.
Oh, wow. Okay. How about a guy that's he's doing a killer podcast right now with Tarzan, Julian Starr. You know Julian at all?
That's another guy. I never really crossed paths with. But listen, Tarzan's so surly. If he's putting up with Julian must be a good dude, right? Because Tarzan doesn't like anybody.
Yeah, it's true. All right, how about I'm gonna give this is a random one. Pinky Petunia.
Oh man, Pinky, that's taking me back. Pinky was one of the most talented dudes. But I don't think he knew it. Like in that like late 90s, like very early 2000s portion of independent wrestling, which is when Jeff had him do like the Bart Hart thing, like he could do Bret Hart, like motion for motion. It was uncanny. Just a super talented guy.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that was his favorite wrestler at the time too. Was Bret Hart, if I'm not mistaken. How about this great tag team? Johnny Idol and Mike Steele, the Egomaniacs.
They were the closest thing to a super team New England had back in the day. Like,
definitely.
So first of all, Johnny Idol is one of the legit funniest guys I've ever met. He's a big sweetheart. And Mike Steele was like, I was never afraid of anybody like wrestling, but Mike Steele was like one of the, I don't think I ever worked a match with him, but I was always like, oh, I'm not going to piss that guy off. He might, take my head off, but they were such a good team. Like Sheldon would like import teams just to work with them, like the All-Nighters from Canada or whatever. Yep. Their stuff looked great. They had great timing. They complemented each other well. They were fantastic.
Right. I got to ask you this too. I want to go back a little bit. Were you working for NECW the night Bradley was Santa?
When he was Santa? Yes.
Yeah. Were you there that night?
I was. Yeah, I was. He attacked somebody with a fork. I forget who I worked with that night. But I know. I was there for that. Yep.
That was crazy. I was selling my merchandise. I was telling Tarzan this the other day. I only sold my merchandise once at Sheldon's show. And sorry, Sheldon, because he charged me $75. When everybody else charges like 25 or 40, Sheldon, Sheldon, that's Sheldon making the money. I no problem with that. He's got to make his money. But that was an unbelievable show. Bradley had come over, and I had a Missy Hyatt book, and he picks it up, and he goes, ho, 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 what a ho. And after that, when he came out at the end, at the main event, I knew he was going to, rip the thing off. So I told the kid that was with me, I'm like, stay here, watch my stuff. I popped huge when he pulled it off. I think I was the first one that knew it was him. And what a pop he got. And that was before he started WFA, right? Am I correct? I think he'd come back.
It was either right before or right after. It was right around that time.
Right. Now you wrestled for Bradley, right? For WFA.
I did. Yep. I was on that first year and a half or so they got going, and then I took some time off when my son was born, and then when my daughter was born, I took a lot of time off. So,
right now, how was your relationship with Steve, who was a hell of what a great worker?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so Steve and I got along very well. I know there was a lot of people that had a lot of legitimate issues with Steve, It's Steve, depending on what day of the week it was or what kind of condition he was in, you could get the great Steve or the awful Steve. But Steve and I got along great, and I think part of that was because Alex Arion and I were road dogs, and he and Steve were like best friends. So after shows, Alex would spend like 30 minutes on the phone with Steve, and Steve was working in Memphis back then, and so Steve and I kind of got to know each other before we knew each other. You know what I mean? So we had like a mutual respect before we ever met. So that's there's a lot of wrestling documentaries. Somebody needs to do one on Steve, because that's one of that's one of wrestling's great tragedies. You know what I mean? That guy should have been WWF champion.
Yeah, that actually is that's awesome. You're right. Someone really should do it. I mean, he was down this, Kurt Angle in his Hall of Fame speech, gave some props to Steve about how he helped him so much down in Memphis.
Yeah. So when Steve had his school open in Manchester, sometimes his cell phone would ring, and he'd he'd click it off, send it to voicemail, and Alex would be like, "Who was that?" He's like, "It's Kurt." I was like, "Answer the phone! It's Kurt Angle."
Yeah, right. That's hilarious. All right, how about here's a couple of guys. They're on the smaller size than they were a tag team, the A-list, Mighty Minnie and Andre Lyons. Do you have any interactions with those guys?
No, those are two guys that worked a lot in Chaotic, and like I said, I obviously I knew about Andre Lyons. I think Maverick had good things to say about him, and Mighty Minnie and Brian Black did a tag team, right? When they were
they also were a tag team too. Yes. I forget the name, but they were a tag team.
I think that's how I knew of Mighty Mini, because I worked with Brian Black like once or twice in Maine. So, but yeah, I always had great reputations. Never worked with them, unfortunately, but yeah.
I always ask about those guys because I was a huge fan of both of them. How about I know didn't you tag team or wrestle Kurt Adonis?
Yeah, I worked with Kurt a couple times in NECW, and I think that was like when I was first starting with Sheldon. I think he didn't do very many shots after that, but yeah, there was like a really good crew working at NECW in like 2000, 2001, 2002. I mean, like independent wrestling was not nearly what it is today, like back then. But like Sheldon's shows were a cut above. Like you could tell if you were in the crowd or if just in the locker room, you look around and be like, wow, every one of these guys can work their asses off. So, and he was one of those guys that was just like really good, had a good gimmick, and was fun to work with. Nice.
How about maybe one of these guys actually was with them at Sheldon shows, Antonio Thomas.
Oh, Tom's great. Tom and I worked a ton of matches together, right? And this is when he was pretty green. It was like right before, and he went to the WWF. But you could tell he had such a good look, and he was so, you could just tell he was down for big things. For some reason, every promoter that put us together, we were like a natural fit to put together in matches. I think because I was like this chicken bleep heel. Keep it clean for TV, and he was like this big, natural baby face. He was tan, great look, big muscles, and I look like an extra from Train Spotting, but I could do a suplex. For some reason, I went over him like 15 straight times in a row. Like he never has a wins and loss don't matter, but I would always needle him. He never has a win over me, which makes no sense at all. Like I should never go over Antonio Thomas.
Right. Now, have you seen any of his new stuff that he's doing? He plays like a 50s nerd, Thomas Santel. Yeah. Good stuff.
Yeah, he's almost doing like a George McFly thing, right?
Yeah. And then
the knock on Tom back in the day was he could do all the moves, he had the great look, he didn't have a ton of personality, and I knew it was there by talking to him. He just sometimes it takes a while, when people don't understand, I think, that haven't ever done pro wrestling, how hard it is. Like you're remembering, you have to remember how to do a match and how to do a good match and how to like take care of the other guy, but you got to remember the crowd and you also got to do this. And, it takes longer for some guys than it does for others, but yeah, he's killing it with that gimmick. It's fantastic.
Yeah. Him and he's tag teaming and beyond with Nick Gage, which is like, so the contrast of people, it's just incredible. Good stuff. All right. How about one of my favorite wrestlers in this area, and he's a huge guy. He's in Ring of Honor, Brian Malonis. Anything with any interaction with Brian?
So Malonis and I, we never worked together. I don't think we did a ton of the same shows. We had like a mutual connection because he went to high school with Laura from Greg in the Morning Buzz. And,
wow!
So we have like mutual friends, and then we met. I think the first time we met was at Brian's school, and we both knew of each other, and we got along pretty much instantly. So yeah, he's a great dude, and I love his gimmick in Ring of Honor is great, and I don't even think it's a gimmick. I think it's just him. And but
it is.
But he's if I remember right, the first time I met him, I think was at Brian's house to watch WrestleMania, and he's like a huge Undertaker mark, so he went nuts for the Undertaker. And me just being a natural heel, I gave him a bunch of crap about it. But yeah, Malonis is a great dude.
Definitely. He's doing some stuff with that girl, Session Moth Martina, him and the Bruiser. And somebody posted on Twitter all the things that they did in one video. Awesome, man. At one point, he's like, looks at her because she's so drunk, and she walks away, and he's like, what a woman! And the sparkle in his eye up top. If you haven't seen it, you really have to look it up because it's hilarious.
I'll have to find that.
Definitely. How about, I'm not sure about if you know any of these guys, but Ryan Drew and Nick Steele, with the late Nick Steele, I should say.
Yeah, Nick Steele, I only knew by reputation. Nick Steele trained about 1,000 guys, right? And he was always on those, he was always on the Top Rope promotion shows. When I usually, when I would do those shows, I would go down there and work with somebody that I drove down with. I didn't really work with a ton of guys that, it was kind of like him and this other dude. I can't remember the dude's name. They were like kind of like we're kind of like the bosses of the locker room. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So.
Yeah. I only met him once. Honestly and truthfully, the guy couldn't have been any nicer to me. It was me and Sonny. Sonny brought me to a Top Rope show, and the guy was just so nice. And it's so sad, you know. But the nice things that were written on Facebook, the posts from everybody was just so great to see. And everybody pretty much said the same thing. What a great guy, you know. He's helped so many people. So your last match was November 26, 2004 against Vince Vicalo. Am I correct on that?
Well, that was the first time I retired.
Okay.
I came back for a little bit after that, but yeah, Vince Vicalo was what a super talented guy. He was a physical amazement because he could drink like 25 beers, get up the next day, and he'd run to the gym. And it was nuts how good he was. I don't know how somebody could drink that much and be in that good of shape and feel no effects from it. He lived his gimmick. He was good times, Vince Vicalo.
He most certainly did. Well, Justin, I want to thank you for coming on the show, and I just want to bring this up real quick. I'd love down the line, maybe we could do a show with you, Mav, and Sonny, or you, Mav, and Brian, or something. It would be. I'd love to do that. You know, maybe we can make something happen over the summer.
Yeah, definitely. Hopefully, when all this stuff clears up. But yeah, as long as you got a delay button, that's what I would recommend if you get 3 of us together. But I'd love to do it. Thank you, Leo. This has been a lot of fun.
Thank you very much, Justin, and I'll talk to you soon, I hope. Take care of yourself.
You too.
All right. Guys, that's it from here, from the Ring and All of Sports. My name's Leo Connors, and for Justin McIsaac, we're out. Peace.
The preceding program was provided by an independent producer solely responsible for its content. The opinions expressed do not necessarily represent the views of this station, its staff, board of directors, or underwriters.